So let me explain to you. Not that I need to explain to you because you guys are super smart watching, but let me just tell you, okay? I traveled in starting in 2015 all the way through 2016 and 2017. I covered majority Donald Trump rallies. I covered majority Bernie Sanders rallies. I covered some Hillary Clinton rallies. I covered one or two Ted Cruz rallies. Covered a Kasich rally, but predominantly I covered Trump and Bernie. Okay? I have interviewed probably in 2016, I probably in total interviewed between 1,000 and 1,500 people on the road. At these rallies, at debates, at conventions, all that. Okay? This is not to tell you, this isn't to brag. I'm telling you just my experience. So you know that I'm not giving you opinions based on no facts, based on no observation, based on not having been in the field speaking with these people. Okay? So I've already told you why Trump supporters actually voted for Donald Trump. Now, this notion, and by the way, let's be clear what they're doing. They are trying to make it seem like Bernie Sanders supporters, because a lot of them did not vote for Hillary Clinton. They're trying to make it seem like Bernie Sanders supporters or Jill Stein supporters voted for Bernie Sanders or chose not to vote for Hillary Clinton because they were brainwashed by Russia. Do you realize how preposterous that is? Do you realize how preposterous that is? So let me tell you why Bernie Sanders supporters did not vote for Hillary Clinton in the general election, okay? And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but let's just remind you, okay? First of all, many Bernie Sanders supporters volunteered for his campaign. Many Bernie Sanders supporters donated money to his campaign. Many of them, many times. Many Bernie Sanders supporters became active in politics for the first time because Bernie Sanders inspired them. Many of them were never into politics before. And many of them, after that, they found out that the Democratic National Committee, in collusion, actual collusion, that word, collusion, worked with the Hillary Clinton campaign to sabotage Bernie Sanders' campaign, decided, well, we don't actually have fair elections. We don't actually have a democracy. You have a supposed to be neutral Democratic National Committee that literally worked with Hillary Clinton as far back as 2015, before Bernie even ran. Before Bernie even announced his run, the DNC was already crafting memos on how Hillary Clinton can win the presidency. A lot of Bernie Sanders supporters, I'm sure many of you in the live chat, chose not to vote for Hillary Clinton in the general election because they stole the election. They stole the election from Bernie. Why would you vote for someone who was complicit and an accomplice to rigging the primary? Like, that generally doesn't inspire you to go vote for someone when they and their campaign worked with the DNC and the Obama administration, by the way, to sabotage Bernie Sanders' campaign. You know what another reason they didn't come home and vote for her in the general election? She picked Tim Kaine as her vice president. Are you kidding me? Yeah, so, this is how that conversation went. This is how that conversation went. Hillary and her brain trust. Well, those Bernie supporters are kind of pissed, so we got to give them something. And Hillary's like, I'm not giving them anything. They'll come around. I'd like to pick Henry Kissinger as my vice president. Henry Kissinger, are you crazy, Hillary? All right, we'll pick Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine is about as inspiring as a carrot. Tim Kaine is about as progressive as broccoli. I know, I'm terrible with the analogies. Tim Kaine is pro-war. Tim Kaine was pro-TPP. Tim Kaine is pro-Wall Street deregulation. He voted for all that. Tim Kaine, I believe, was pro-Iraq. I mean, Tim Kaine is Hillary Clinton with different parts. She could have picked Bernie. She could have picked Elizabeth Warren. I know A lot of people have problems with Elizabeth Warren, but would have been a lot better than Tim Kaine. She could have picked Sherrod Brown. She could have picked anyone with a heartbeat. That would be better than Tim Kaine. So, you want to... Jay says, yeah, Jordan, don't insult vegetables like that. They could be good for you, not like Tim Kaine. That's a good point. Not only did Hillary Clinton's campaign rig the primary, but then they picked basically another neocon who was even more to the right of her for vice president. Yeah, that's a way to get Bernie Sanders supporters out there to vote for you. Like, are you kidding me? And then, whatever you want to say, if you think Russia hacked the DNC and Podesta, if you think, there's some evil global conspiracy, whatever you think, WikiLeaks releasing these Podesta emails in September and October, I know because I read probably hundreds of them, and if you remember when I was at the Young Turks, tweeted them out in real time. WikiLeaks wasn't like informing Bernie Sanders supporters of anything they didn't already know about Hillary Clinton. I always said when I was at the Young Turks and I was on the campaign trail, the smartest voters that I found at these rallies were certainly not Trump voters, were definitely not Hillary's voters, but Bernie voters. Many of them younger, but a lot of them older. Majority of them always did their homework. But it's not like WikiLeaks and releasing these emails was informing Bernie Sanders supporters that Hillary Clinton was corrupt. Like they didn't know Hillary Clinton was corrupt. You want to know how I know this? Because I interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Bernie supporters. They knew Hillary Clinton's record. They knew Hillary Clinton's donors. They knew Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation's questionable donors. They knew that she was using her office of Secretary of State to basically enrich lobbyists. They knew that she had pushed fracking around the world as Secretary of State. They knew that she had pushed the sale of weapons to Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is now using those weapons to commit genocide in Yemen. It's just preposterous, this whole article. It's just a way for them to basically have a Trojan horse and say, well, people, it's not that people don't like, basically what the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC is trying to say is it's not that people don't like neoliberal politics. It's not that people don't like crumbs. It's not that people don't like endless war. It's not that people don't like fracking. It's not that people don't like, $12 minimum wage rather than $15 minimum wage. It's not that people don't like pragmatism. It's not that people don't like droning half the world. It's not that people don't like taking money from fossil fuel companies that are destroying this world. It's that they were brainwashed by Russia. Geez, why didn't I know that? Denise Columbia says, we're just stupid and easily led by foreign operatives, of course. And you know who loved this story from the New York Times? Take a guess who was tweeting today. Jen sent it to me. Take a guess who is tweeting today. She's ecstatic. I'll give you a hint. It's a she. She's ecstatic. Here's what our friend Neera Tanden, friend of Status Quo, of course, says. Jake Tapper tweeted, the voter suppression effort was focused particularly on Sanders supporters and African Americans, urging them to shun Mrs. Clinton in the general election and either vote for Trump or Jill Stein. Or either vote for Jill Stein. I think the continuation of that was vote for Jill Stein or stay home. Neera Tanden says, I could tweet this 1,000 times. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I can't. And by the way, Neera, Jen Dyes is digging into your Center for American Progress. We're going to have a follow-up report to her wonderful report yesterday. So stay tuned for that, because, does the Center for American Progress, boy, do they have some interesting donors. Boy, do they have money, take money from some interesting donors, some interesting countries. Are we going to dig into that, Neera? I know. I'm a sexist for not liking neoliberal hacks. So Neera Tanden, she could tweet this out 1,000 times. It's interesting because Neera Tanden is a Jen, right? She's a woman of color, I believe. She's a woman of color. So Neera Tanden is endorsing a concept that essentially African Americans are stupid. She's endorsing a concept that African Americans, essentially, the reason they didn't come out for Hillary as much as they would have otherwise is because they were brainwashed by Russian trolls. By the way, this video and this report, I'm not saying that Russians didn't try to influence the election. There were Russian trolls on Facebook. There were Russian trolls on Instagram. There were Russian trolls. So, yeah, there were. But this concept that they swayed voters, they swayed Bernie voters, they swayed African Americans, they swayed the voters in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Ohio. There's no data that even comes close to backing that up. It's such a vague, stupid concept. And by the way, you know who I think has just as toxic of an effect as trolls? There's a group called Correct the Record. It's a Hillary Clinton super PAC. They are an army of paid trolls. They're an army of paid trolls. And they come out and put out distortions. They put out lies. They put out facts. They put out lies. They put out phony baloney, out of context nonsense to try and defame Bernie Sanders. They've gone after Nina Turner. They've gone after Tulsi Gabbard. They go after Noam Chomsky. So Russians aren't the only one with trolls. By the way, the United States government has trolls that they dispense in other countries. The United States government has interfered in Russia's election. I did an interview with Rolling Stone's Matt Taibbi. He was a journalist in Russia during the 1996 election. The United States swung that election for Boris Yeltsin. Not to mention, you got Israel and their lobbyists influencing the United States election. You got Saudi Arabia, but it's Russia brainwashing black people and Bernie supporters.